What if the very qualities you believe make you virtuous are secretly destroying your power? What if kindness is just cowardice in disguise? What if your humility is nothing more than self-erasure? Carl Jung understood something most people refuse to accept. The brightest persona often casts the darkest shadow. We've been taught to value agreeableness, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, humility, selflessness, and relentless positivity. But these so-called virtues can become psychological prisons when they're masks for deeper fears. Jung warned that when we over-identify with being good, we don't become enlightened, we become weak, invisible, and controlled by the very forces we refuse to acknowledge. This isn't about morality, it's about the survival of your authentic self. The question isn't whether you're a good person. The question is, are you real? There's a modern religion most people worship without realizing it, the religion of being liked. Agreeableness has become the ultimate currency in our society. Say yes, don't make waves, keep the peace, be nice, smile even when you're screaming inside. But Jung saw through this performance. He understood that chronic agreeableness isn't kindness, it's a survival mechanism born from terror. The agreeable person isn't being generous, they're being strategic. Every yes is a bargain. If I please you, maybe you won't abandon me. If I erase my needs, maybe you'll finally see my worth. This is the shadow of agreeableness, cowardice dressed as compassion. When you say yes to everyone, you're saying no to yourself. When you mold yourself into whatever shape others need, you stop existing as a separate being. You become a mirror, reflecting back what people want to see, never revealing what you actually are. And the cost? Resentment, rage, a quiet, seething bitterness that you can't even name because you've convinced yourself you're being virtuous. Carl Jung called this passive aggression, the shadow's revenge. When you refuse to assert yourself directly, your suppressed needs leak out as sarcasm, forgetting commitments, chronic lateness, silent sabotage. You hurt others without ever claiming your anger. You punish without ever admitting your pain. This is the life of the compulsively agreeable, invisible to others, unbearable to themselves. Now, pair this with false humility, and you have a psychological disaster. Real humility is beautiful. It's the recognition that you're one thread in a vast tapestry, important but not central. It's strength without arrogance. But false humility is something else entirely. It's self-hatred marketed as virtue. The falsely humble person doesn't say, "I'm one among many." They say, "I'm less than everyone. My dreams don't matter. My voice doesn't count. My existence is an imposition." Jung warned that when you suppress legitimate ambition, assertiveness, and self-worth, you don't become a saint, you become psychologically fragmented. The parts of you that want to create, to lead, to shine, they don't disappear, they go underground into the shadow. And from the shadow, they poison everything. False humility creates envy. You watch others claim the space you denied yourself, and you resent them for having the courage you lacked. You tell yourself you're being modest, but really you're just afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of failing, afraid of discovering that maybe you're not as special as you secretly hoped. So you make yourself small and call it wisdom. But here's what Jung knew. When you refuse to stand in your power, you don't just harm yourself, you harm the world. Because the gifts you were meant to offer, the contributions you were meant to make, the leadership you were meant to provide, they die with your false humility. The shadow of self-denial isn't spiritual, it's cowardice. And the world doesn't need more people pretending to be less than they are. It needs people willing to be real. Patience is supposed to be a virtue. Wait for the right moment, don't rush. Good things come to those who wait. But Jung would ask, or do good things come to those who act? There's a difference between patience and paralysis, between wisdom and cowardice, between strategic waiting and fearful hiding. Real patience is active. It's choosing to delay action because the timing isn't optimal, because preparation is incomplete, Because the situation requires observation before intervention. Passive patience is passive. It's waiting because you're afraid to move. It's enduring because you're terrified of confrontation. It's accepting the unacceptable because conflict feels more dangerous than suffering. This is the shadow of patience, passivity dressed as wisdom. The passive person doesn't wait for the right moment. They wait forever. They tolerate mistreatment and call it endurance. They accept betrayal and call it forgiveness. They watch their boundaries get violated again and again, and they tell themselves they're being patient, but they're not being patient, they're being weak. Jung understood that the shadow doesn't just contain your rage and selfishness, it also contains your strength, your power, your capacity for decisive action. When you exile these qualities in the name of patience, they don't transform into virtue, they rot into resentment. The patient person becomes the passive victim. The person who endures becomes the person who enables. The person who waits becomes the person who never lives. And this connects directly to tolerance, which has become perhaps the most misunderstood virtue of our time. Tolerance sounds noble. Be open-minded, accept differences, don't judge, live and let live. But when does tolerance become complicity? When does open-mindedness become moral emptiness? Jung believed in integration, not in the erasure of discernment. He knew that when you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing. When you accept all behavior as equally valid, you abandon your values entirely. The shadow of false tolerance is moral weakness disguised as sophistication. The falsely tolerant person doesn't have principles, they have fear. Fear of being called judgmental, fear of appearing rigid, fear of standing alone. So they nod along with ideas they don't believe. They accept treatment they find unacceptable. They watch others violate standards that matter, and they say nothing because speaking up might make them unpopular. This isn't tolerance, it's cowardice. Jung's path to individuation requires differentiation. You must know what you believe, what you stand for, what you will and won't accept. This doesn't mean being rigid or cruel. It means having a spine. The person who tolerates everything becomes psychologically formless. They're everyone and no one. They agree with whoever's speaking. They adapt to whatever environment they're in. They have opinions only when it's safe to have them. And in this formlessness, they lose themselves entirely. Patience without action is paralysis. Tolerance without standards is weakness. And both, when taken to their extreme, create a life of passive suffering, enduring what should be changed, accepting what should be rejected, waiting when you should be moving. The question Jung would ask is simple. Are you being patient, or are you just afraid to act? Are you being tolerant, or have you simply abandoned your values? What do you think? Have you ever mistaken passivity for patience, or tolerance for wisdom? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss this together. Forgiveness is sacred. It's spiritual. It's what good people do. You've been told that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You've been told that forgiveness sets you free. You've been told that if you can't forgive, you're the problem. But what if that's a lie? Not all of it, not always, but what if premature forgiveness, forgiveness as performance, forgiveness as spiritual bypassing? What if that kind of forgiveness doesn't liberate you at all? What if it just buries the wound deeper? Jung had a radical understanding of the psyche. He knew that what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size, and this applies to forgiveness in a way most people never consider. When you force yourself to forgive before you've allowed yourself to feel the full weight of the betrayal, the violation, the injustice, you don't transcend your pain, you repress it. And repressed pain doesn't disappear. It goes into the shadow. It festers, it grows, it leaks out in ways you can't control. This is the shadow of premature forgiveness, repressed rage disguised as enlightenment. The person who forgives too quickly, who rushes past their anger because anger isn't spiritual, doesn't become holy. They become psychologically fractured. Their conscious mind says, "I forgive you, it's fine, I've moved on." But their unconscious mind is screaming, "You destroyed me, I hate you, I will never trust again." And that screaming doesn't stop just because you've decided to be a good person. It emerges as passive aggression, as chronic bitterness, as trust issues that sabotage every relationship, as psychosomatic illness, migraines, digestive problems, chronic pain, because the body keeps the score when the mind refuses to. Jung understood that true forgiveness, when it happens, is a gift, but it can't be forced, it can't be performed, and it can't happen before you've honored the full truth of what was done to you. You have to let yourself be angry, furious even. You have to let yourself grieve the trust that was broken, the innocence that was stolen, the time that was wasted. You have to stop protecting the person who hurt you and start protecting yourself. Only then, after the full reckoning, can real forgiveness emerge, not as a moral obligation, but as a choice made from wholeness, not fragmentation. But our culture doesn't allow this process. We're told to forgive immediately, 70 times 7, turn the other cheek, be the bigger person. And if you can't, if you're still angry, then you're the problem. You're bitter, you're stuck, you're unenlightened. This is psychological violence. It forces you to perform virtue while your inner world collapses. It makes you complicit in your own mistreatment. Jung would say, honor your anger. It's telling you something true. It's protecting something sacred. Don't rush past it to prove you're spiritual. Don't bypass it to maintain your image as a forgiving person. Because premature forgiveness isn't healing. It's just another way of abandoning yourself. The person who forgives without processing the wound doesn't become free. They become numb. They forgive because they've stopped believing they deserve anything better. They forgive because they've learned that their pain doesn't matter. And that's not freedom. That's defeat. Real forgiveness, when it comes, feels different. It's not a performance. It's not forced. It emerges naturally after you've allowed yourself to feel everything, to rage, to grief, to protect yourself fiercely. And sometimes it doesn't come at all, and that's okay too, because some things aren't meant to be forgiven. Some violations are too severe, some betrayals too complete, and forcing yourself to forgive them doesn't make you enlightened. It makes you complicit in your own erasure. Jung's path isn't about becoming nice, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness includes your rage, your boundaries, your refusal to tolerate the intolerable. So before you forgive, ask yourself, am I doing this because I'm ready or because I'm afraid of my own anger? Am I releasing the past or am I just silencing myself again? The answer matters more than you know. I want to pause here and thank you, truly, deeply thank you for staying with me this far. Most people won't watch a video like this all the way through. Most people turn away when the conversation gets uncomfortable, but you're still here. That says something about you. It says you're not just consuming content, you're seeking truth. You're willing to look at the parts of yourself that hurt, that hide, that pretend, and that takes courage, so thank you. And I promise you, the best is still to come. Good vibes only. Just think positive. Everything happens for a reason. Manifest your dreams. Raise your vibration. These phrases sound uplifting, don't they? They sound like wisdom, like enlightenment, like the secret to happiness. But Jung would call them what they are: psychological poison. Toxic positivity is one of the most insidious shadows of our time. It's the compulsive need to maintain a happy facade at all costs, to suppress anything negative, to perform cheerfulness even when your world is far apart. And it creates one of the thickest, most dangerous shadows Jung ever warned about. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When you're forced to suppress sadness, anger, fear, and grief because their bad vibes are low frequency, those emotions don't vanish. They don't transform into light. They go underground. They go into the shadow, and there, in the darkness you refuse to acknowledge, they rot. Jung understood that the psyche demands wholeness, not one-sidedness. The attempt to be only light doesn't create enlightenment. It creates fragmentation. It creates a split between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. And that split, it's where the madness lives. The toxically positive person walks around with a smile plastered on their face, while depression eats them alive from the inside. They post inspirational quotes about gratitude, while anxiety keeps them awake at night. They tell everyone they're so blessed, while their relationships crumble, their health deteriorates, their sense of self disappears. They're not happy, they're performing happiness, and the performance is killing them. Because here's what toxic positivity does. It pathologizes normal human emotion. It tells you that sadness is a choice, that anger is toxic, that fear is a lack of faith, that grief means you're not grateful enough. It tells you that if you're struggling, it's because you're not thinking positive enough, not manifesting hard enough, not vibrating at the right frequency. This is emotional gaslighting. It takes your legitimate pain and tells you it's your fault for feeling it. And when you believe this, when you internalize this, you stop honoring your emotions entirely. You stop listening to what your sadness is trying to tell you. You stop respecting what your anger is trying to protect. You stop allowing yourself to grieve what you've lost. Instead, you smile, you affirm, you manifest, you perform. And the real you, the one who's hurting, who's angry, who's terrified, that version of you gets exiled into the shadow, exiled, denied, abandoned. Jung knew this was catastrophic. He knew that the shadow, when fed enough rejected material, doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It grows, it festers, and eventually it erupts. This is why the most toxically positive people often have the most traumatic breakdowns. The carefully constructed facade can only hold for so long. Eventually, the suppressed emotions become too large to contain, and when they emerge as depression, as anxiety, as emotional numbness, as explosive rage over small things, as complete collapse. The person who spent years saying, "I'm fine," suddenly can't get out of bed. The person who posted daily gratitude lists suddenly can't find a reason to live. The person who radiated positivity suddenly feels nothing at all. This isn't mysterious, it's predictable. It's what happens when you deny half of your humanity in the name of staying positive. Jung's vision of wholeness includes darkness. It includes sadness, anger, fear, grief, not as problems to be solved, but as essential parts of being human. You're not meant to be happy all the time. You're meant to be real. You're meant to feel what's actually happening, not what you wish was happening. When someone you love dies, you're meant to grieve. When you're betrayed, you're meant to be angry. When you're facing uncertainty, you're meant to feel fear. These aren't failures. They're not signs of low vibration. They're not evidence that you need to be more positive. They're human, they're real, they're necessary. And when you honor them, when you allow them, when you stop performing positivity and start living authentically, something remarkable happens. The emotions move through you. They don't get stuck because you're not resisting them. Sadness comes and it goes. Anger comes and it goes. Fear comes and it goes. But when you suppress them, when you deny them, they stay, they grow, they become your shadow. Jung's path to wholeness isn't about eliminating negative emotion. It's about integrating all emotion. It's about being human enough to feel everything, wise enough to not be controlled by it, and brave enough to not perform an identity that isn't real. So the next time someone tells you to just be positive, remember, they're offering denial. They're asking you to amputate half of your humanity to make them comfortable, and you deserve better than that. Selflessness is the crown jewel of virtue, the ultimate good, the highest spiritual achievement. Put others first, sacrifice your needs, give endlessly, love unconditionally, make yourself small so others can be big. This is what we're taught, this is what we worship, and this is what destroys people. Jung saw selflessness differently. He understood that when selflessness becomes identity, when it becomes compulsive, when it becomes the only way you know how to exist, it's not noble, it's pathological. This is the final and perhaps most dangerous shadow, self-erasure disguised as virtue. The chronically selfless person doesn't have healthy boundaries. They have no boundaries at all. They don't just prioritize others, they have no self to prioritize. They've constructed an entire identity around being needed, being useful, being the one who gives. And what happens when you're not needed anymore? When your sacrifice isn't acknowledged, when your endless giving isn't reciprocated? You collapse, because without the role of caretaker, martyr, or savior, you don't know who you are. This is the psychological trap of chronic selflessness. It looks like love, but it's actually a desperate strategy to earn value. The selfless person doesn't give freely, they give compulsively from a place of deep unworthiness. They believe, often unconsciously, that they don't deserve to exist as a separate being with legitimate needs, desires, and boundaries. They believe their worth is conditional, earned only through perpetual sacrifice. So they give and give and give. They exhaust themselves. They neglect their health, their dreams, their relationships with people who actually reciprocate. They pour themselves into others who take and take and take, never questioning whether they deserve better. And they call this virtue. They call this love. They call this spiritual. But Jung would call it what it is: self-abandonment. The shadow of selflessness isn't generosity, it's resentment, it's bitterness. It's the quiet, seething rage of someone who gave everything and got nothing back, but who can't admit it because that would shatter their identity as the selfless one. This resentment leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, in martyrdom narratives, in the unspoken expectation that others should recognize and repay the endless sacrifice. After everything I've done for you, I gave up my life for you. No one appreciates what I do. These aren't the words of someone who gave freely. They're the words of someone who gave transactionally, who expected reciprocity but never asked for it directly, who sacrificed themselves and then resented others for accepting the sacrifice. This is the tragedy of chronic selflessness. It doesn't create love, it creates dysfunction. It creates relationships built on guilt, obligation, and unspoken debt. And it destroys the person who practices it. Jung's path to wholeness requires something that sounds selfish to the selfless person: legitimate self-interest, the recognition that you are a being with needs, desires, and boundaries, that your existence has intrinsic value, not just instrumental value. You don't exist to serve others. You exist, period. And from that place of secure existence, you can choose to give, not because you have to, not because it's the only way to earn love, not because you'll collapse without the role, but because you want to, because you're full enough to overflow, because generosity is a choice, not a compulsion. This is the difference between healthy giving and self-erasure. Healthy giving comes from abundance. Self-erasure comes from emptiness trying to fill itself through others. Jung understood that the journey to wholeness requires integrating the shadow, including the parts of you that have needs, that want things, that claim space, that say no. These aren't selfish impulses, they're essential parts of being human, and when you exile them in the name of selflessness, you don't become holy, you become psychologically fractured. The most dangerous lie the selfless person believes is this: I don't matter, my needs aren't important, I exist to serve. But you do matter, your needs are important, and you don't exist just to serve. You exist, fully, separately, completely. And until you can claim that existence without apology, without earning it through sacrifice, without justifying it through service, you're not living. You're just disappearing slowly, calling it virtue as you fade. The 7 virtues that society teaches you to worship: agreeableness, humility, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, positivity, and selflessness, can become the very chains that bind you to a life of weakness, resentment, and invisibility when they're performed rather than authentically lived. Carl Jung didn't call you to abandon morality. He didn't call you to become cruel, selfish, or callous. He called you to abandon the false self, the persona, the mask. He called you to face your shadow, to look directly at what you've denied, what you've suppressed, what you exiled in the name of being good. He called you to integrate those rejected parts: your anger, your ambition, your needs, your boundaries, your legitimate self-interest. Because wholeness isn't found in being half of what you are, it's found in being all of what you are. The journey from performed virtue to authentic strength isn't about becoming a worse person, it's about becoming a real person. It's about refusing to erase yourself in the name of goodness. It's about claiming your existence without apology. It's about standing in your power without calling it pride. It's about feeling your anger without calling it toxicity. It's about honoring your needs without calling it selfishness. This is individuation. This is wholeness. This is what Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who you pretend to be, not who others need you to be, not who society rewards you for being, but who you actually are. So here's the question Jung would ask you, the question that started this entire exploration. Are you living as your authentic self, or are you just performing goodness to avoid being seen? What virtues have you used as masks? What parts of yourself have you exiled into the shadow because they weren't nice enough, humble enough, positive enough? And what would happen if you brought them back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This conversation matters. Your insights matter. Let's explore this together. If this resonated with you, if it challenged something you needed to question, subscribe to this channel for more philosophical insights that don't just comfort you, they wake you up. And don't miss the next video. It might be exactly what you need to hear.